Hey everyone, David Bauders, CEO of Trade Hounds, and I'm joined today by Kevin Sarb. Kevin is the Managing Director at Ducker Carlisle. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, how's it going?
So it's great to meet up with you here at NAED National. Can
Likewise.
you give us a little bit of insight into what you're finding interesting here this year?
I think as always, the various sessions that I think bring forth a fair amount of insight and interest, starting with the general session this morning or the Wednesday morning that always happens, and the update on where NAED is headed, where the opportunities are, and then of course, the very interesting discussion around Make It in America and the thinking to how to develop that next gen and make the next gen workforce excited about the opportunities, more broadly in maybe the non-college path, but certainly, as that pertains to the electrical space, because it's a huge problem that has to be overcome through a lot of different tools in this industry and many others.
Yeah, a lot of our users at Trade Hounds are part of the next generation of electrical workers and skilled tradespeople. We know over the next 5 to 10 years, about half of construction workers in the United States will retire, having to be replaced by a whole new generation of skilled tradespeople. And beyond all of that, there's lots of new demand for electrification. And so
Yeah.
productivity is going to be a big question mark for the industry, and as well as how to recruit more workers. What kinds of thoughts do you have on where productivity can come from?
Yeah, sure. So it's one of the things we actually presented on yesterday. We led a session yesterday or Tuesday around the electrification opportunity for distributors, of course, for the membership here. And one of the key insights, or I think one of the key insights coming from that is productivity is declining in construction in general at the same time that we're losing labor too. So it's a double whammy. And some of the questions for distributors then become, how do you insert yourself further and add productivity to the project? Now, obviously, electrical distributors are one piece of a building that's being built, an important piece. But that flows through to the questions of, how do we create new capabilities or build the talent pool that's more technical, perhaps a mix of more engineers and high-skilled technical folks that can drive the projects of the future, which are more complex. When you start talking data centers, when you start talking the energy management systems and how that advances, software and controls and everything around the buildings being built. That's just a small example. How do they build the capabilities? And there's a lot of paths you can go down there, but there's some probably combination between training and developing the next generation workforce or the current workforce we have, shifting the skills away to what's needed for the future, really understanding that, and combining that with digitization and AI at some level to enhance productivity of the workforce we have. Not necessarily a job replacement, but how do we, in essence, divide the work between us and machines that can be as or more productive than we've ever been to meet the demand that's coming, which is substantial, if you believe the forecast.
And we know that up to 30-40% of the workforce time is spent today just trying to get the materials they need at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Distributors can play a big role in taking out waste in that whole value stream.
It should be, and in a lot of ways that should be a standard competency for distributors, right? The manage inventory, where's my stuff, became a lot more challenging after COVID, but certainly that's a basic, I don't want to say basic, but a place they can start. But it goes further perhaps into that, if we're talking about distributors or the skills to build, at least to deliver these projects, which is there more involvement in the design phase of a project from a distributor than there was in the past? Do they build services around project management and things that aren't necessarily tied to their products that they're selling, but are needed because the EPCs, the contractors can't deliver everything that's in the pipeline. They need help, especially for certain projects, to realize, again, the demand that's coming our way, or we expect is coming our way, especially in certain electrification sectors.
I know you're actively involved in consulting to manufacturers and distributors.
Yep.
Tell us what types of pivots you're advising of manufacturers these days.
Of manufacturers, specifically? I don't know if it's pivots per se. I think really for both manufacturers and distributors, the key is picking the right battles at this point. And again, this goes back to some of what we presented on yesterday and around the opportunity out there is there are so many sectors that are exciting right now. It could be data centers. It could be solar fields for commercial or for utility setups. It could be, revolutionizing automation and energy management within industrial facilities. Reshoring is happening, right? That's another one. The industrial space, maybe thanks to tariffs and a lot of other factors and supply chain disruptions. But you can't pick every battle. You got to be smart and stand up your business with the right resources, capabilities, and focus to succeed with the right business plan. Not, we're going to dabble in this and dabble in that. It's like we got to make some choices and commit, and then have the right plan in place that we can execute to get where we want to go.
Yeah, I think that word focus is so important, because for a lot of distributors, basically their business mix is whatever their sales team decides on any given day.
It can be, but that's what's interesting, because the traditional electrical distributor, you're looking at, we're moving conduit and wire and switch gear, and that's our core business, and that's in supporting the electrical contractor, and that's great, and that it should be the core business and makes a ton of money. But the opportunities that are coming in the future tied to electrification and automation open up new pathways, but you got to leverage your core and not spread yourself thin across everything. So, not every distributor can be an automation expert and drive that, right? But some are set up well for it. And others, depending on the market you're in, if you're regional, maybe solar's big there, and that's what you pick and set forth the strategy, invest in it, get the people you need and the experts to deliver at the end of the day. So really, it's not a pivot. It's actually a nice time in this industry, because there's a big menu of opportunity out there. You can't eat everything on the menu. I might have liked to last night at the restaurant, but the reality is, pick and choose and commit.
Well, I guess that's interesting, because like recently I wrote a blog post on the concept of the ideal customer profile. And I think while it's very common in the rest of the business world to first sort out the question, whom do we seek to serve? For a lot of distributors, it's not that clear at all. And frankly, when you have Wild West approaches to selling, where salespeople get commissioned equally on every gross margin dollar that comes through the door, it's very hard for distributors to adopt the discipline of the ideal customer.
Sure, it depends on the market they're in, but part of that, and that's what's evolving, is where does the distributor sit in the value chain? Not to get too consultancy right here, but sometimes are you serving an integrator or an engineer with other services or product, or are you serving the electrical contractor, or some mix of both, or all the way to some subs, or direct to the GC or the EPC. And that can be different for different projects or different situations too. But then requires a bit of different skills in each of those situations too, and what you're bringing to the table. So you're right, the ideal customer becomes very different in those situations.
Are you consulting with distributors and manufacturers on profitability as well as broader strategic questions?
When you say profitability, meaning managing
which
costs?
levers they should be working the most aggressively? What are their core competencies in terms of operating levers?
Our focus, or my focus, has been strategic growth, right? Well, if there's a profitability, like what are the margin potentials in certain areas if you're going to access it compared to what you're used to earning or your core business, and are you willing to, ideally you're going after higher margin businesses, but not always. It depends strategically what makes sense. But for us, the advisement is mostly, hey, if we're going to expand into a market, which ones, how are we going to do it? Both, where do we focus? What types of customers, segments? And then let's build, the business to do it, right? Both the operating model, the commercial go-to-market, and everything around it is typically what we would do, or how we would work with our clients.
What's the weakest strategic muscle for most manufacturers?
For most manufacturers, it's understanding the customer.
Okay.
I mean, especially, not to pick on any manufacturers that are here, but
sure.
They're selling through distributors, and then there might be they might go through integrators, or it could be even 3 steps at times. They're a good distance from the end user, or who's really the end customer. I'm not naming names. I've had discussions with some where there's a new solution in a certain area, and we ask who's the buyer for this? And the answer is, well, we're still trying to figure that out. But a lot of these manufacturing companies are engineering driven. They have a good idea. They have a new technology, and let's push it, and we'll find a buyer for it. Which there's been successes in some cases there, but there's the give and take. Are we trying to create something to solve a problem that doesn't exist yet, or nobody knows exists? So there's that there's always the customer focus. I mean, there's the extreme other way, as everybody talks about. no one was asking for an iPhone in 2005, right? If you surveyed customers, what do you need? Like, I don't know.
Nobody was asking for the camera that makes phone calls.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't need to check email on my phone. I've got my computer. So there's two sides of that, but I think it's a healthy mix of that. But coming back to your original question, yeah, I mean, the manufacturers are often a long way in this industry from the customer to really have those insights. And some of that's what we bring is really spend a lot of time in digging into the market to understand where the pathways are.
That's really one of the core value that Trade Hounds brings to the market is we have over 400,000 tradespeople out there. They work for a variety of different size contractors in all of the different industries you're talking about. We can help people to really conduct more focused customer research, to be able to learn how their brands are perceived, which products are resonating, which ones aren't. And not only to learn about their customers, but then also to build awareness and preference with those same customers. So we've seen that for a lot of manufacturers, getting closer, especially when they have this 2 or 3 step go-to-market problem, really involves embracing new social platforms and finding ways to cut through that distance that they have in the market.
And I'm not sure how Trade Hounds does it, but we do work with companies, and they do a lot of customer surveys or push that out to the market. But it might be the standard NPS type, scoring, or the higher level satisfaction levels and things like that, or what are your preferences? And I think it goes beyond that to say, take an electrical contractor, really understanding their business and breaking down, like, what are ways we can help you make more money, and then asking what they need, and then the need behind the need, and probing until you really unpack the root cause, the problem that you can solve, versus the hey, I just wish my stuff got here faster, which is important, but there might be more to that. Like, well, what does that mean? Do I need it on a certain date? Do you need it fast? I mean, there's a lot of things here, but that's just one example. But I think that's where it's that need behind the need that sometimes is missed when you engage with that end customer, to really say, you're buying from us because we're helping you make money, right? Because you're a businessman too. It's not like, hey, do you want a shiny product in the B and C world?
I think a lot of companies too forget that the contractor, even as an entity, is still not the final layer.
That too.
You've got a whole workforce of electricians who work for contractors, and a lot of the real breakthroughs in productivity, safety, efficiency, all the things that we're talking about, they happen at that level of the worker.
Sure.
And if manufacturers aren't really getting down at the street level and understanding, how is real work being done, and where are the breakdowns in productivity, safety, efficiency, then they're still just talking to the employers of workers, and
You're right.
That's not the end of the story.
I mean, it's one way we frame things, and it seems simple, but is often overlooked in this B2B world, of course, in a manufacturing world. This applies to manufacturers or distributors who are selling to contractors, and to your point, the end customer is a developer, an asset owner, or whatever that could be at the end of the day. How are you creating value for your customer? One way is you're helping them take costs out of their processes. Hey, we're selling you something that makes you more efficient, and you're willing to pay us a premium because you save money in your operations. Maybe less labor, maybe faster turnaround, less asset, whatever that is, asset utilization.
Fewer callbacks.
Yeah, all those things. The other way is, hey, because I'm using your product, solution, ingredient, whatever that is, I sell more at a higher price, or sell more at the same price, or sell the same at a higher. It's a demand side question. So therefore, how am I bringing to the table, helping you, contractor, tradesperson, win more jobs, charge more for your jobs at the end of the day? I mean, and do we always step back and think through that? Because the contractor, the electrician, they're not working for free. They need to make money and sell their services. And if your tools or solutions or products help that, then
they are fundamentally in the labor productivity business.
All of them.
They're not in the business of buying materials at the lowest cost. That's one of the biggest misconceptions in construction. There's no amount of money you can save on materials that will make up for a lack of productivity.
If my capacity increases as a contractor or electrician because I get jobs done faster because of XYZ, or because a distributor takes things off my plate and modularizes some prefabrication, huge.
So let's pivot a little bit towards the distributors. I know you're helping distributors think through important strategic questions beyond the focus and market segment, portfolio balancing types of questions. What other areas do you advise distributors on?
So beyond, could you restate what you said there if I hear this?
So beyond, thinking about the focus of their market, their ideal customer, which project types to focus on, what are the other areas that you advise distributors strategically?
Sure. Across our firm at Ducker Carlisle,
Even particularly in industrial B2B.
yeah, in the industrial B2B, it's the buzzword now, but we have an AI practice at our firm now. We hired some folks from Google, and it's a lot of that is let's sit down and talk about the potential use cases for AI, not just, hey, let's throw AI at something, and let's build a tool that does, whether it's internally, whether it's generating sales leads or other operations or processes. That's one part. We do supply chain optimization and pricing optimization as well throughout our business as well to complement our B2B growth and commercial, which is more my expertise area.
Okay. As you think about where distributors need to improve, what's the operating area that stands out the most?
Gosh, it should be a core competency, and this is a little far from my expertise, but I'll say, it comes back to what NAED is working on. The where's my stuff, right? Can you get to that level where, Amazon set the expectation to where I can see where my stuff is and when it's going to show up consistently and know that. And I know it's not always the distributor's fault because they've got the manufacturers or their vendors they're dealing with, but that consistency when you're serving projects is huge. I mean, that's to me the biggest piece. To get to that level, and that's a core of what their capability should be, and that's on the operational side to that point. But that's what stands out. That said, overall distributors are very strong operationally from what we see compared to many.
And what do you think the future holds for distribution? Do you see more consolidation? Do you see a healthy future for independents? Where do you think the map is 10 years from now?
Specific to the electrical distribution space, it seems like consolidation will continue, and I think part of that is the markets we're facing with bigger, more complex projects probably requires more scale from a distributor in general. The other thing we talked about is, as funny as it is, we talk about digitization AI, but to serve the future projects, when we talk about the complex data centers and things like that, it changes the type of skills in SG&A you have to have. So you have to maybe invest in the expensive engineers more and those capabilities, which again, that requires more scale to be able to put those investments forth, which probably starts leading to more consolidation. Again, I don't have a crystal ball on this or anything. If I did, I'd be retired. But that seems to be where the trend would head.
What are some of the most promising applications of AI that you're seeing for manufacturers first and then distributors?
To me, and this has been coming up in some discussions the last week, and I may have mentioned this already, but I think there's huge applications in sales effectiveness. When you talk about you have CSRs or inside salespeople, spending times pouring through like lead lists and trying to pre-qualify before they go out to the field, and the opportunity for AI to do that and provide both more and more higher quality leads to the field, start saying, I mean, that's a huge revenue because your close rates you're going to have more in the funnel and a higher close rate if that works well compared to the current state. You need to hire more salespeople, so it's not like a job cut situation. It's actually we need to hire more people because of this. That's one example. I think there's a lot of just internal like sales and commercial reporting that goes on and standard to track where we're at and track target customers and call plans and all that. That I think people first think about AI is going to automate, and there's going to be robots all over the warehouses and everything. Yeah, that's going to come, right? But I think there's a huge front-end revenue gen opportunity just to make salespeople spending more time selling at the end of the day, your whole sales organization, which becomes a huge benefit. And they're doing the thing they should, interacting with customers and helping solve their problems versus pouring over maybe a standard takeoff that could be done, 80% could be done with an AI tool.
Right. At our parent company, Sparks IQ, we provide prescriptive sales analytics for salespeople, help them to understand what's the best use of their next unit of time.
Sure.
How do they develop, a call plan that really leads to a more profitable territory?
Yep.
And, even at the CSR level, helping them to understand, what are the gaps as we have a new generation of tradespeople out there. They're missing things from their orders all the time because they just haven't, half of the spend in construction originates in an unplanned way in the field, up to half of it. And when you have that kind of knowledge transfer gap going on in the field, there's a real role for frontline CSRs to really help quality check
Yep.
those RFQs and purchase orders. And without the right tools, obviously the distributors are also going through their own demographic shift.
Yeah.
So we think AI can really help to improve knowledge transfer and start to backstop a lot of those talent issues.
That's another good point you raise, and it's funny. Me and some of my colleagues were at the Automate show in Detroit last week. With some of the manufacturers, that are here, there too, of course, with their exhibits. And an interesting application too was that knowledge transfer piece and some solutions that monitor the ways of working from someone that's been in the warehouse for 20 years and might retire soon, for example, that in theory should be documented, but that person just kind of knows that it's instinctive at this point. But okay, you use visioning systems and different cameras and just kind of track that, and that can be downloaded into, okay, here's a manual and process for the next hire or whoever else we pull in to train them up or onboard the next generation for here's how it's done, which is quicker, probably more accurate than someone trying to sit there and document their job for a day, right? So that becomes a really important tool for knowledge transfer, which ties in with the retirements that are coming.
Well, Kevin, it's been great catching up with you and learning about what's on your mind, and really appreciate the time.
No, I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.